They haven't texted back in 3 hours. You check your phone again. Nothing. Your mind starts spiraling. Did I say something wrong? Are they losing interest? Are they with someone else? Maybe they're done with me. You want to reach out, but you don't want to seem needy. So you wait and obsess and create stories in your head about why they're pulling away. Even though, logically, you know they're probably just busy. Or maybe it's this. You're in a relationship, but you never quite feel secure. You need constant reassurance. You analyze every text, every tone of voice, every facial expression for signs they're leaving. You feel like you love them more than they love you. And the closer you try to get, the more they seem to pull away. This is anxious attachment. And if this sounds painfully familiar, you're not alone. And you're not broken. Today, I'm breaking down exactly what anxious attachment is, where it comes from, why it shows up in your relationships, and most importantly, how to move towards secure attachment so you can finally feel safe in love. Let's dive in. First, let's talk about attachment theory. This comes from research by psychologist John Bowlby and later Mary Ainsworth, who studied how early relationships with caregivers shape how we connect with people throughout our lives. There are 4 main attachment styles. Secure attachment, about 50% of people. You feel comfortable with intimacy and independence. You trust people, communicate your needs, and don't panic when someone needs space. Anxious attachment, about 20% of people. You crave closeness but fear abandonment. You need a lot of reassurance and worry constantly that people will leave. Avoidant attachment, about 25% of people. You value independence over intimacy. You pull away when people get too close and struggle to express emotions. Disorganized attachment, about 5% of people. You want closeness but fear it. You have a mix of anxious and avoidant patterns, often from trauma. Today, we're focusing on anxious attachment, also called anxious preoccupied attachment. If you have anxious attachment, your core fear is abandonment. Your nervous system is constantly scanning for signs that people are going to leave. You're hypervigilant to any shift in connection, and you cope by seeking closeness, reassurance, and validation, sometimes to the point where you lose yourself in relationships. Here's what makes anxious attachment so painful. You desperately want closeness, but the way you pursue it often pushes people away. You become too much, too needy, too clingy, too intense, which activates the very rejection you're trying to avoid. It's a painful cycle, and it's not your fault. Let me show you where it comes from. Anxious attachment develops when your early caregivers were inconsistent. Not abusive necessarily, just unpredictable. This might look like a parent who was sometimes warm and attentive, other times cold or dismissive. A caregiver who was emotionally available when they were in a good mood, but unavailable when stressed. A parent dealing with their own issues, depression, anxiety, addiction, so their presence was unreliable. Being left with different caregivers frequently, creating instability. A parent who responded to your needs, but only when you escalated, cried louder, or acted out. Here's what happened. Your developing brain learned that love is inconsistent. Sometimes you got the connection you needed, sometimes you didn't. There was no predictability, so your nervous system developed a strategy. Stay hypervigilant, monitor constantly, never relax, Because the moment you let your guard down, the person might disappear. You also learned that you had to work for love. You had to be good enough, charming enough, compliant enough to earn attention. Love wasn't freely given. It was conditional and inconsistent. And now, as an adult, you bring this template into your relationships. You're unconsciously scanning for the same inconsistency you experienced as a child. And when you find someone who's even slightly unpredictable, which most humans are, your attachment system activates. Here's the painful irony. You're often attracted to people with avoidant attachment. People who pull away when you get close. Why? Because that push-pull dynamic feels familiar. It recreates the uncertainty you experienced as a child. Your nervous system is trying to resolve the original wound by finding someone similar to your inconsistent caregiver and finally getting them to stay. But it doesn't work. It just recreates the pain. Let's get specific. Here are the signs you might have anxious attachment. 1. You overthink everything in relationships. Every text is analyzed. Every slight change in tone means something. They use a period instead of an exclamation point. They must be upset. They took 20 minutes to respond. They're pulling away. 2. You need constant reassurance. You ask directly or indirectly. Do you still love me? Are we okay? Are you mad at me? Do you still find me attractive? You need to hear that they're not leaving, that you're enough, that everything is fine. And even when they reassure you, it only lasts a few hours or a day before the anxiety comes back. 3. You're terrified of abandonment. The thought of someone leaving feels unbearable. You'll do almost anything to prevent it. Change yourself, ignore red flags, tolerate mistreatment, abandon your own needs. You'd rather stay in a mediocre or even unhealthy relationship than face the pain of being alone. 4. You lose yourself in relationships. When you're in a relationship, your partner becomes your center. Their needs, their feelings, their schedule, it all takes priority over your own. You adapt to them. You become who you think they want you to be. You sacrifice your hobbies, your friendships, your boundaries, anything to keep them close. 5. You're hyper-aware of any distance. If they're quieter than usual, need space, or seem distracted, your alarm bells go off immediately. You interpret normal human fluctuation as rejection. You can't tolerate distance or independence in relationships. Space feels like abandonment. 6. You protest when they pull away. When you sense distance, you pursue. You text more. You ask what's wrong. You try to create closeness by pushing for connection. This is called protest behavior, your attachment system's way of trying to restore proximity. But it often backfires, making the other person pull away more. Protest behaviors include excessive texting or calling, making them feel guilty. I guess I'm not important to you. Creating drama or conflict to get attention. Threatening to leave, even though you don't want to. Acting out through jealousy, accusations, or testing them. 7. You replay conversations obsessively. After any interaction, especially if it felt off, you replay it over and over. Why did they say it that way? Did I come across wrong? Are they upset with me? You can't let it go. Your mind loops trying to figure out if you're safe or if they're leaving. 8. You feel like you love more than you're loved. There's an imbalance. You feel like you're more invested, more committed, more caring. You're always the one reaching out, planning, trying to keep the relationship alive. And deep down, you believe that if you stop trying, the relationship would end. If you're thinking, "This is me," take a breath. You're not broken. You're not unlovable. You have an attachment style that developed as an adaptation to inconsistent love. And it can change. Before we talk about healing, we need to address the most common relationship dynamic for anxiously attached people: the anxious-avoidant trap. This is when someone with anxious attachment gets into a relationship with someone with avoidant attachment. And it's a painful, self-reinforcing cycle. Here's how it works. Step 1. Anxious person craves closeness and pursues connection. Step 2. Avoidant person feels engulfed and pulls away to protect their independence. Step 3. Anxious person feels abandoned and pursues harder, protest behavior. Step 4. Avoidant person feels even more suffocated and withdraws further. Step 5. Repeat, forever, until someone breaks. Why does this happen? Because each person triggers the other's core wound. The anxious person's pursuit triggers the avoidant person's fear of losing themselves. The avoidant person's withdrawal triggers the anxious person's fear of abandonment. And here's the cruel part. If the avoidant person actually stopped pulling away and committed fully, the anxious person's anxiety would often decrease. But the avoidant person can't do that without working on their own attachment wounds. Similarly, if the anxious person could give the avoidant person space without spiraling, the avoidant person would likely come closer. But the anxious person can't do that without healing their fear of abandonment. So you're stuck. Each person needs the other to change first, and neither can until they do their own healing work. If you're in an anxious-avoidant dynamic, here's the hard truth. You can't fix this by yourself. Both people need to recognize the pattern and commit to change. If your partner isn't willing to do their work, you're fighting a losing battle. The healthiest thing you can do is focus on moving yourself towards secure attachment, regardless of whether they come with you. So, how do you move from anxious to secure attachment? Here are 5 evidence-based strategies. Strategy number 1. Develop a relationship with yourself. Anxious attachment makes you externally focused. Your sense of safety and worth comes from other people. You've outsourced your emotional regulation to your partner. Healing means bringing that back inside. Start by asking, what do I need right now? Not what does my partner need? Not what will keep them happy? What do I need? Practices. Daily journaling. How do I feel today? What do I need? Spend time alone regularly, even if it's uncomfortable. Make decisions without consulting your partner. Keep hobbies and friendships that are yours alone. Practice self-soothing when anxious. Don't immediately reach for your phone. The goal. You're building an internal secure base. You become the person who can regulate your own emotions, meet some of your own needs, and feel whole, even when you're alone. Strategy number 2. Question your stories. When anxiety shows up, your brain creates stories to explain it. They haven't texted back. They must be losing interest. They seem distant. They're probably cheating. They need space. They're going to leave. These stories feel true, but they're usually projections of your fear, not reality. Practice catching these stories and asking, what evidence do I actually have for this? Is this based on their behavior or my fear? What else could this mean? What would I tell a friend who was thinking this? Alternative stories. They haven't texted back because they're in a meeting. They seem distant because they're stressed about work. They need space because everyone needs space sometimes. Your anxious brain will always default to the worst interpretation. Your job is to notice that and choose a more balanced story. Strategy number 3. Communicate your needs without protest behavior. Anxiously attached, people often hint, test, or act out instead of directly asking for what they need. Why? Because asking feels too vulnerable. What if they say no? What if they get annoyed? But indirect communication creates the very disconnection you're trying to avoid. Practice saying, "I'm feeling anxious about us. Can we check in? I need more reassurance than usual right now. Can you tell me where we stand?" When you don't text back for hours, my anxiety gets triggered. It would help if you could send a quick text to let me know you're busy. Indirect communication or protest behavior looks like getting cold, making them feel guilty, creating drama. Direct, secure communication looks like, "I'm feeling insecure and need connection. Are you available to talk?" If you communicate clearly and your partner consistently dismisses or ignores your needs, that tells you something important about the relationship, not about your worthiness. Strategy number 4. Date securely attached people. This might be the most important one. Stop dating avoidant people. I know, you're attracted to them. The push-pull feels familiar. The chase is intoxicating. But familiar doesn't mean healthy. Securely attached people might feel boring at first. They're consistent. They communicate clearly. They don't play games. They don't make you anxious. And that unfamiliarity might feel like no spark. But here's the truth. That calmness you're interpreting as no chemistry is actually what safety feels like. Secure people will text back reasonably consistently, tell you directly how they feel, not disappear or pull away randomly. Be comfortable with both closeness and independence, not make you guess where you stand. Your nervous system will need time to adjust. You're learning that love can be stable and predictable. That might feel unfamiliar, even boring at first. Stick with it. Your anxiety will decrease dramatically in a relationship with someone secure. Strategy number 5, therapy, especially attachment-focused. If your anxious attachment is significantly impacting your life and relationships, professional support can accelerate your healing. Therapeutic approaches that work well. Attachment-based therapy, which directly addresses your attachment patterns. EMDR, which processes early attachment wounds. Emotionally focused therapy, or EFT, especially for couples. Internal family systems, or IFS, which works with the anxious part of you. Somatic therapy, which addresses how attachment lives in your body. A good therapist can help you understand your specific attachment history, process early relational wounds, practice secure attachment in the therapeutic relationship, build distress tolerance when anxiety shows up, develop healthier relationship patterns. Remember, anxious attachment isn't a life sentence, it's a learned pattern, and what was learned can be unlearned. So, what does life look like when you move towards secure attachment? You can tolerate space in relationships without spiraling, trust people's words instead of constantly looking for hidden meanings, feel secure even when your partner is busy or distracted, communicate needs directly without fear, stay grounded in yourself while being in a relationship, choose partners based on compatibility, not intensity. Walk away from relationships that don't serve you. Feel calm and present instead of anxious and preoccupied. Here's what becoming secure doesn't mean. It doesn't mean you never feel anxious. It doesn't mean you don't care about connection. It doesn't mean you become cold or detached. What it means is you feel anxiety, but you don't let it control your behavior. You value connection, but you don't lose yourself to maintain it. You care about people, but you don't abandon yourself for them. You can sit with discomfort without immediately seeking reassurance. You become someone who can handle the natural ebb and flow of relationships without panicking. You trust that distance doesn't mean abandonment. You believe that if someone wants to leave, trying to hold on won't help. And paradoxically, when you stop clinging, people often move closer. When you stop seeking reassurance, you feel more secure. When you stop making someone your whole world, the relationship gets healthier. If you have anxious attachment, I need you to hear this. Your need for connection isn't wrong. Your desire for closeness isn't too much. You're not broken, clingy, or unlovable. You experienced inconsistent love when your nervous system was forming, and you adapted. You developed hypervigilance as a survival strategy. It made sense. It kept you connected to caregivers who were unpredictable. But that strategy, while it served you then, doesn't serve you now. It creates the very abandonment you're trying to avoid. The good news? You're not stuck here. Attachment styles can change. Research shows that with awareness, intention, and practice, you can move towards secure attachment. You can learn to trust that people won't abandon you just because they need space. You can learn to stay grounded in yourself while loving someone else. You can learn that you're worthy of love just as you are, without performing or proving. You deserve a love that doesn't make you anxious. You deserve a partner who shows up consistently. You deserve to feel secure. And you can create that, starting with how you show up for yourself. Anxious attachment isn't a character flaw. It's a learned pattern from inconsistent early love. And what was learned can be unlearned. You're not too much. You're not unlovable. You're someone whose nervous system learned that love is unpredictable. And now you're learning that it doesn't have to be. Remember, this video is for educational purposes and isn't a substitute for professional mental health care or relationship counseling. If you're struggling with attachment wounds or relationship patterns, please consider working with an attachment-informed therapist. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing. We explore attachment, relationships, and mental health in ways that help you understand yourself and build healthier connections. Take care of yourself. Your attachment style can change. You can feel secure in love.